Hello everyone.
Hi, Mina.
Now that we've all gotten a closer look at Cyrene in recent patches, I wanted to make a quick video sort of going over what we know about her so far from leaks. Although a quick reminder, everything in the video is subject to change as it's all based on unofficial pre-release information, so take everything with a grain of salt. I want to give a quick rundown of what I'll try to cover. Cyrene supposedly being Remembrance main characters Pro Max version, like 5-star Tegan was Harmony main characters replacement. What to expect from her kit, some visual aspects we know, territory mechanics as well as issues that could arise from it, her supposed global passive, kit mechanics that she has and potential synergies that could be with these, as well as a few closing thoughts at the very end. So is Cyrene just an RMC replacement? I've seen recently that a lot of people have been calling her the 5-star Tingyun of 3.x, and while it is certainly true, and I believe so as well, that she will be incredibly strong and probably able to take, if not replace RMC in most teams, I don't think she's a outright replacement for RMC. One of the reasons I think this as well is that true damage isn't really in need of quote-unquote replacement as a gimmick, like for when you need to change the MC to the next path in the future, because we already have true damage present in other characters such as E1 Tribby or Cypher's kind of unique true damage in her base kit, as well as E6 Finon and likely other characters coming out soon too. They'll probably have true damage in either dupes or talents or icons, who knows. While it isn't as game-changing as the Harmony counterpart of the main character, enabling super break scaling for characters that first of all didn't have it to begin with, or really helping with the characters that heavily overload on stats that are good for super break, like Firefly, because Firefly has partial super break in her kit, but the problem is she overloads on stats so much but doesn't have the super break scaling to back it up, and that's where Harmony MC comes in. So I would say more or less in short, Cyrene is certainly going to be powerful, but don't really count on her being an outright replacement. I'll go over this later as well in terms of the territories, and especially with how the game is in its current state. We're playing honkaistarrail after all. You're likely just going to run both unless there's a reason to change the main character to the next path. Actually expect from Cyrene. Cyrene will likely be an Ice Remembrance support character. Other leaks suggest that she bears heavy resemblance to her Hersha form in Honkai Impact 3rd. Territory abilities, global passive, possibly even the ability to instantly recharge ultimates on cast of certain abilities. Now let's talk visuals. Beforehand, Cyrene's NPC model appeared in the story at the end of version 3.3. We got a pretty apt description from Luna, which is pretty spot on. I'll read it here. Cyrene has an NPC model that appears in the story. It uses a small girl body type and wears shoes. It's not barefooted, basically matching the one in the Amphorius preview. Matches up pretty well. The playable version seems to use the tall girl body type and also features dual form, incorporating some designs elements from Alicia and Hersha of Human Ego. Cyrene's art assets include a realm, and the background of her main splash art is part of that realm. This matches up pretty well with what we've been told in the story so far, and as well as another leak we've received recently from Uncle Melon. If you look at the image here, the image bears pretty heavy resemblance to Hersha of Human Ego Alicia. I'll put her on screen too. A lot of people have been saying it might look like March. In my opinion, while it does kind of have similar colors, I think it kind of resembles Remembrance overall, like icy light reflections, rather than it being actual March. Especially with Evernight releasing soon, that we're looking more at a dark version of March rather than this very bright and colorful version of her. I also believe this model is not to be confused with Alicia supposedly being slated to get another battle suit in Honkai Impact Thread. Because if we look at the proportions, I'd say they fit pretty well with HSRs, as well as the chest being quite a lot smaller compared to Alicia in Honkai Impact. So I'd say we're pretty much looking at what is likely her. As well, if we look at the weapons that Cyrene wields in the story, and compared to her staff from her Herrscher of Human Ego battlesuit, they bear pretty similar resemblance to like a crescent moon of sorts, if you look here. As for her memo sprite, we can kind of allow ourselves to speculate a little bit on what it's going to look like. I personally believe we're probably looking at maybe a giant stingray if we look at the Herrscher of Human Ego from Honkai Impact Third. She has a giant stingray she uses in her abilities, as well as us in the next patch getting a stingray enemy. Not to say that it's going to be the case, but it would not surprise me either, especially with all the already heavy resemblance to her Herrscher form. Now moving on to territory and its potential issues. If Cyrene does have a territory ability, as the leak I'll show you on screen suggests, one of the main issues is that as territory works in the game right now, I'll also put it on screen, only one territory can be active at one time. So if you're already using Finon and Casters together, for example, you can do it in the game if you have both. When one of the other characters' territory is active, the other character cannot activate their ability that would trigger the territory. Obviously, you cannot use Caster's when Finon is using his, but if you, let's say, use Caster's ultimate and she summons the giant flower field, then Finon cannot even activate its ultimate at all because the territory is already present. Which would mean if Cyrene does have a territory, she would unfortunately likely not work too well with Finon or Caster's, but obviously it would depend on what is tied to a territory. But I would believe that if she has a territory, that it would likely carry a lot of her buffing capabilities, or at least the strong ideal buffs you want from her. There's something else that's worth to talk about, being that Cyrene will supposedly have a global passive. This is a pretty recent leak, and probably should be taken with a higher grain of salt. It also points out, if you look here, that only one global passive can be active at a time, so you wouldn't be able to have Cassidy's Global Revive active at the same time as whatever Cyrene's will be. It obviously remains to be seen what her global passive will be. Maybe it will actually get a damage amplifying global passive, or if we're gonna stick more in the more niche utility category like Caster's Global Revive, because Caster's Global Revive has some problems, such as you needing to heal or get shielded when you get revived. So who knows, Cyrene's passive could have similar caveats to not make it absolutely broken, but only time will tell. Most recent leaks and older ones still suggest that Cyrene will fulfill a pure support role. Interesting hint we got quite a while ago about an upcoming character, which so far doesn't seem to fulfill anyone we have in the game right now. But it's basically a character that can party-wide regenerate ultimate energy, or maybe just activate it of sorts. If we think like Brain in a Vat in a similar universe, that could potentially be it. As well as other party-wide buffs, which wouldn't fall too short from other characters. So if these things are true, we might potentially see her being able to battery ultimates that aren't just energy with stuff like Brain in a Vat. If we look at Casterus, Finon, and Acheron, as well as Fei Xiao, they all have special energy bars, but they still regain their ultimates from Brain in a Vat, as it just fully recharges their ultimate or grants it instead of regenerating energy. So if we kind of ignore her having a territory, we could potentially seeing her have synergy with Casterus or even Finon, giving them even more ultimates, more dragons to spam, allowing Finon to basically remain permanently in his ultimate state, even at lower investments, despite not having many action advanced characters in the team. These leaks also highlight that she'll likely pair really well with March 7th, she's also going to be like the latest DPS releasing closest to Cyrene. So I think it's fair to assume that she will likely be the best DPS in the game for the time being until we see future characters. Overall, Cyrene is probably going to be the highest and best tier investment you can make in the game. And if she turns out as is kind of expected from her, if you want to really push her long haul or longevity, pulling E2S1 is probably not too bad of an idea. One thing is for certain, you likely will never want to skip her. If there's going to be a must pull character in the game, in reality there isn't a single must pull, but if there's going to be one, it's likely going to be Cyrene. Version 3.6, as we already know, 3.6 will bring Evernight and Terravox in the patch, as well as a new relic sets. My assumptions is that at least one of these two relic sets will be for Cyrene, knowing that she's released the patch after, and they likely aren't releasing any other relic sets, at least for another 2 or 3 patches. I think it's fair to assume that she will receive one of the sets, and either Evernight or Terravox will be able to use what other set is available. For those that didn't know, Poyo has a sort of internal metric to estimate how well they expect the characters to sell. And typically, if a character is slated to sell well, they're also likely to be meta or like very strong at the very least. Because at the moment, Cyrene is marked as S+, being the highest sales ranking. The only other characters to receive an S or above so far has been Acheron, Firefly, Fei Xiao, Lee Herder, Castoris, and Phynon. And I think an obvious show that sales ranking does not equal strength is that when Trippy was released, her sales ranking was set to be brought down by the Lolly model. But as we all know, in the current state of the game, Trippy is simply too OP. DDD spam, etc. Damage vulnerability, E1, you get 24 true damage, just out the wazoo damage increase. So I think it's safe to say that Cyrene will likely break the game. I think we'll see 2 versions of Cyrene. It's already hidden in the story that we are asked to seek out the future Cyrene. So that's likely what we'll see, the standard adult model, and then we'll likely see, as we saw earlier, if the leak proves true, that we'll see her kind of Herschel ultimate form, similar to Phynon as well. I also don't think it's too crazy to think that she'll have true damage amplification. We'll receive other information that she's supposedly going to buff pretty much all Chrysos without failure. It's quite an excessive statement, especially if she has a territory, but we obviously don't know yet. But I think she's going to be generalistic enough to be put pretty much everywhere, and I think that's the most important part. Thank you everyone that's watched so far through the video. This is my first video of this channel, so I would very much appreciate any and all feedback down in the comments below. I'm not really sure what I want to do with the channel. I think this video was more so aimed to give a general overlook as to what we know about Cyrene so far. But if you guys have any other suggestions or other topics you want me to cover, please drop any of them below. And of course, I hope all of you have an absolute Elysian day.